Ready? All righty. It is 4:30. We are the Carmel-by-the-Sea City Council. I'm going to call to order this meeting. It's now 4:30, and we are the City Council for Carmel-by-the-Sea. We've returned from our tour, so if we could get a roll call over, that'd be lovely.
Yes. Councilmember Barron.
Here.
Councilmember Ferlito.
Present.
Councilmember Tice.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Richards.
Here.
And Mayor Potter.
Here.
All are present.
Next order is the Pledge of Allegiance. Carrie Tice, would you lead us in the pledge, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Terry. Well done. All right, our next item is public appearances. This is an opportunity for any member of the public to comment on an item that is not on tonight's agenda. It's a 3-minute limitation on the testimony. If you state your name for the record, I'd appreciate it. Is there anybody wishing to speak tonight? Anybody in the Zoom world wishing to speak? I do see a hand up. 941. 941, your hand is up. You can either speak or put it down.
I'm sorry. Good afternoon, Mayor Potter, City Council members, and Carmel residents. This is Christy Hollenbeck from the Stop Cell Towers and Carmel Neighborhoods Group. We understand that Verizon has filed an appeal at the Ninth Circuit District Court related to their Carmelo cell tower application. We are diligently assessing what this means. We ask that city officials keep us apprised of any legal developments. We believe this highlights the importance of having a strong wireless ordinance that puts the city in control and does not have any loopholes. The best practices ordinance drafted by top wireless attorney Andrew Campanelli and financed by the citizens of Carmel and the Stop Cell Towers and Carmel Neighborhoods Group will accomplish that. Mr. Campanelli likes to say that his ordinance is not designed to stop all cell towers. It is designed to give the city the maximum ability to control where they go. We are so grateful for the groundswell of residents who have expressed their support, donated to our cause, and taken the time to speak, write letters, and turn in their postcards. I also want to remind everyone that the next wireless meeting will be on September 14th, and Mr. Campanelli will be speaking. It should be a very interesting and educational meeting, and I hope you will all attend. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your testimony. Is there anybody else wishing to speak tonight? No, I'm not seeing anybody. Are you?
Parker Logan.
653. Yes, you're right. You have the floor.
Was that me? Am I 653?
Yep.
This is Parker Logan. I've been doing a recent study of a bunch of use permits. I have a question for the council and staff. Many of them are allowing deliveries before 10 a.m., but it's not uncommon that the downtown streets are clogged up with huge trucks unloading massive amounts of products for restaurants up until past noon. And we got visitors and locals and people trying to get around, and we're dodging trucks and hand trucks and delivery guys. I'm wondering with the new hire of the additional code enforcement officer, if these are going to be handled in a way that kind of clears up our very clogged streets. And secondly, I just wanted to bring up, going back to parklets, when we had a rental fee due each month, and you collected hundreds of thousands of dollars that were supposed to do some sort of beautification to downtown, which I've yet to have seen or has been exposed by the city so far, and including an empty tree well sitting right outside of my business location that I brought up on numerous occasions, and yet it just sits there bare. So I'm just kind of wondering, where did all that money go? Maybe someone could answer that question. That'd be great. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Parker. Appreciate your testimony. Is there anybody else wishing to speak? I'm not seeing anyone. Nova?
I don't see anyone with their hands raised.
I'm going to close the public comment period, then bring it back to business, new or extraordinary business. We have extraordinary businesses, very extraordinary today. Chip, we have some new employees you can introduce.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I just, I was thinking about this. I don't think that you're going to find an agency. So we have 27 new employees. So 27 employees who we've hired in the last 12 months. We've got 3 offers pending for library staff. And then there's one not on here, which is Sebastian, because he's guarding us right now and working the controls. That's 31. I think that you'd be hard pressed to find any agency in California that was able to, that would be able to fill that many positions within such a short amount of time. I mean, that's almost 3 a month. As I've preached, we have a very rigorous process for hiring employees. We want to make sure that people understand our organizational values, our city values, the village in the forest by the sea values. And quite frankly, I'm just honored that we have such a wonderful cadre of people who have joined us. I really am truly honored. My encouragement is to each of you to get to know these people. For the new staff, please reach out. The council is very approachable. The executive team is very approachable. Let's make those connections. To the community, please stop and say hello and introduce yourself. If you're in the library or you see someone working on the forestry crew or taking your payments at one of the counters, please say hello and introduce yourself. We've got 1 new police officer. We obviously have a new police chief. We've got new dispatchers. What I want to say, Mr. Mayor, is maybe we could just take a minute and ask the people just really quickly, very informally. We can start with Tom Lewandowski, who we're very fortunate to steal from the city of Monterey. Thanks, Joel, for coming in. You're not new. But we could just briefly maybe introduce yourself. And because of COVID restrictions, we traditionally shake hands, but we won't shake hands today. But if you could just introduce yourself. But again, I just really want to thank all of you for coming and joining our, what Maxine always says is our small but mighty family. Council, you directed me to fill a bunch of positions last year, and we've done a wonderful job. And this is the result. This is a real good thing that came out of the pandemic, which again we were able to do these recruitments. Obviously, we had the financial capacity, and I'm just again honored and thrilled to have everyone here. So thank you for joining us, and thank you for the opportunity to blather about this, Mr. Mayor.
Tom?
Good evening, Mayor, council members. My name is Tom Lewandowski, and as Chip mentioned, I had worked for the city of Monterey for the last 6.5 years. I come to this city with a CPA background, 22 years of governmental accounting, auditing, and budgeting. Been assistant finance director for a small city in the Valley, and worked all the way up in with the city of Monterey to Public Works Administrative Services Manager. So a lot of variety. I've worked in recreation and community services for the city of Monterey and was their budget analyst. So I have a lot of diverse background, and I'm looking forward to being on the executive team and being able to advise on budget and financial matters. So thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
Not everyone has to give as much detail as our new CPA. You're fine with the name, but again, this is indicative. Please, again, reach out and meet the council, meet the community. Saray, go ahead, please.
Yeah, hi, my name is Roy Nathan, and I'm the assistant planner. And I've been here about 8 months and enjoying every minute of it. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Catherine Wallace. I'm the new associate planner. I started in April, and my background is in historic preservation.
Hi, I'm Aaron Campbell. I am the new code compliance coordinator. So take a look at this masked face out there. You won't see it because I'm sure that you'll have lots of questions and places for me to go and fingers to point. I'm happy to be here. Thank you all for having me. My background is in zoning, planning and code, building code and zoning code. So I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Duane Dauphany, the new building inspector. I've been here for about working on 4 months. I've been very welcomed from the staff here and am loving my new job. You'll see me out there making your inspections, so please feel free to say hi.
How's it going? My name's Tim Ammett. I'm a new police officer here in the city of Carmel. I also came from Monterey. I was a police officer there for 5 years. I look forward to meeting everyone here and serving the community.
My name's Leah Young. I came here from the county of Siskiyou. I'm the new administrative coordinator in the Community Planning and Building Department. Really grateful to be a part of such a great team.
Hi, I'm Christina Mcgovern. After 24 years in education, teaching everyone from elementary to postgrad, I am very happy to be here working for the city of Carmel. In my free time, as I tell people, I enjoy writing and photography. That would be part of my job. Anyways, I'm very happy to be working here, very grateful.
Good evening. My name is Tom Ford. I'm the administrative analyst in Public Works, primarily working in forestry at the moment. We'll be working in budgeting. Happy to be here, and thank you for having me.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jessica Wico, and I am the new admin tech in the Environmental Programs Division in Public Works. And I come from the city of Santa Clarita, working in the Community Recreation and Community Services Department for 6 years, and I'm really happy to be here.
Hello, my name is Eric Miller. I am the new tree care specialist for Public Works, and I'm very excited to be on board. Born and raised on the peninsula, and I'm happy to still be on the peninsula.
Hello, Council and Mayor. My name is Michael Wood. Just moved up here recently 4 months ago, working with Public Works, the Forestry Department. My father, Lester Wood, came today. He was excited to come to the council meeting. And hello, everyone else who I haven't met, who's new. And I really love it up here, and thank you for the opportunity. Anyone else?
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Good evening, everyone. My name is Juanita Menig. I am the new admin coordinator for the admin office right here in City Hall. I am a local to the area. I have 3 kids that are in the local Carmel Unified School District. So as school's starting on Monday, if you see me at River or Carmelo or Carmel Middle, I hope you give me and my kids a greeting. I'm very happy to be here. And I'll hand the baton on.
Thank you, Council, Mayor. Hello, my name is Aubrey. I am the new Tech Services Librarian over at the Carmel Public Library. I am new enough to both the area, I've been working here since June, and librarianship that Carmel-by-the-Sea is probably going to end up being my background. So thanks for giving me the opportunity for such a great start to my field.
Hello, my name is Leanne McDonald. I'm the children's librarian at the Children's Library, the Park Branch. I worked for City of San Antonio Public Library before I came here, and I lived in California for about 30 years before that, so I'm happy to be back.
Hi, I'm Randy. I'm a library assistant, and it's great to be here. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Michaela Carroza, and I'm back again. I was originally hired in 2009 as a director's assistant, but now I'm a library assistant and happy to be back after 20 months where we were closed. So really glad to be back for you guys.
Hi, my name is Afsa Irani. I'm a library assistant. I come from the town of Los Gatos, and I'm happy to be here.
And Mr. Mayor, we've got Emily, who you've met in the administration office. She's not in today. She's ill today. I'm sorry. Emily Garay. You've met Matt Nittenson. He's our new firefighter paramedic who joined us a few months ago. We have Ricardo Mendoza, who's a police officer who left and then thought how wonderful it was to work here and came back. We have Sebastian, as you know, and there's one other guy we're missing. Oh, yeah, Chief Ward. With that, pardon me?
No.
Oh my gosh. I'm so sorry. Supernova.
Getting so used to it.
Go ahead, I apologize.
we go. Hi, my name's Nova Romero. I'm the city clerk for City of Carmel. I've been here for about 6 weeks, and I was introduced, I think, at the last meeting, but I'll introduce myself again and hope to see everyone around. Thanks.
Excellent.
I'm sorry.
So let me, on behalf of the council, welcome you folks to the city of Carmel-by-the-Sea, a wonderful place to work, obviously. Before the crowd had swelled to as many, Councilmember Richards, Vice Mayor Richards, and I were intending to take you all out to lunch. The offer still stands, providing Mr. Richards is willing to share in the cost. We were both going to sponsor the event. It may be hot dogs in the grill somewhere, but the offer still stands, and please don't be shy. I'll offer one piece of advice that was given to me when I first got on council over in Monterey. Dan Albert, maybe some of you remember him, a great guy, a great mayor, pulled me aside, and I thought this was going to be a very important moment in my life. He pulled me aside and said, Dave, I'm going to give you one piece of advice. I said, Dan, what's that? He said, Dave, don't screw up. That order still stands, guys. Appreciate it. Welcome to Carmel-by-the-Sea. It'll be fun. Thank you. All righty, the next item is a proclamation honoring Doug and Jeannie Friedman for the Concourse on the Avenue. Ashley Wright, are you present? There you are. Ashley, I'm going to read this, and then if you'd come forward, I'd be glad to have you say a couple words. This is a City of Carmel-by-the-Sea City Council proclamation. A proclamation of the City Council of the City of Carmel-by-the-Sea honoring Doug and Jeannie Friedman for the Concourse on the Avenue. Whereas Concourse on the Avenue was held in Carmel-by-the-Sea for 13 years, and whereas the world-class event has featured classic German, French, and British cars and American muscle cars that were displayed along Ocean Avenue throughout the downtown, and whereas the Friedmans, who were devoted to giving back to the community, and their event has benefited the Carmel Foundation for Seniors throughout their generosity and the generosity of the event participants, and whereas the event, beloved by locals and visitors alike, was the passion project for the Friedmans that showed their true love of the village, and whereas the Concourse on the Avenue event has been a staple of the Peninsula Car Week and a jewel of the crown of Carmel's events. Now therefore be it proclaimed that I, Dave Potter, Mayor of the City of Carmel, thank and honor Doug and Jeannie Friedman for their service to the community of Carmel-by-the-Sea, passed and adopted this day, August 2nd, 2022, by Dave L. Potter, Mayor of Carmel-by-the-Sea. Just like to comment, actually, before I do this, that it is with great sadness that we make this resolution. You know, we missed the event, but we missed Doug more. He was an incredible part of this community. He gave back. He was a challenge to work with, but he always did it with the best of heart. He had the best intentions, and he wanted a world-class event, and he did that. I hope someday that event will return, but right now, Jeannie has our sympathies, and it's my pleasure to hand off this resolution to Ashley.
I say I spoke with Mrs. Friedman last week, and we kind of played communications tag today. I know she and some of her supporters and friends in particular were keen on seeing the Friedmans honored, and I think it's important that we do this at the council meeting this evening. But I'm also working with Acura on doing something at their event on Tuesday, so stay tuned for more details on that, please. And I will work with Mrs. Friedman if she's in town to make sure that she's there to hear the lovely things I think that everybody wants to say about Mr. Friedman, who, as you mentioned, nobody had better attention to detail. If you want a world-class event, he was your person to do it. And I'm so glad that the Friedmans and I this last year got a chance to work together the way that we did. It was challenging with COVID, but we got there in the end. And one of the best parts of last summer was having a wonderful dinner with the two of them and learning some things that I didn't know about them. Mr. Friedman's a drummer and a musician and just all kinds of interesting things. So thank you to the Friedmans, especially for the event last year, and I look forward to maintaining that relationship with Mrs. Friedman as we go on, and we'll make sure that she gets a copy of the resolution.
Thank you, Ashley. Much appreciated. And again, please extend our love and condolences to Jeannie. All right, why don't we move on then to item number C, letter C, extraordinary business, which is the 3 C's of E, annual membership agency presentation. I believe we might have Catherine Stedman present. Welcome.
Yeah.
This is great.
still looking for a place. We're still going to go on the city.
Good. Thank you for bringing your father, too. He must be most proud of you. Thank you. Very impressive.
Oh,
Okay, great. Just click here. Go for it. Okay, thank you. Okay, well, good afternoon, good evening. I'm Catherine Stedman. I'm with Central Coast Community Energy, and it's really a pleasure to be here and have the opportunity to present to you. So thank you very much for having me. Oops. Here we go. I got it. So just to begin, a little bit about Central Coast Community Energy. We are a community choice aggregation agency. We're a public agency, we're a joint powers authority, and we procure power on behalf of the cities and the counties that make up our agency, and then deliver it to the businesses and residents in the communities that we serve through the existing transmission and distribution lines. So we are one of 13 community choice aggregation agencies that partner in this way with Pacific Gas and Electric. We provide the cities and counties that we serve with more local control, more choice around where their power comes from, and decisions about the rates that customers pay. Our revenue also stays local, and we invest that back into the community through many of our energy programs that help businesses and residents to electrify vehicles and homes and buildings. So there are currently 23 community choice aggregation agencies in the state of California, serving 11 million people. So right now, about a quarter of the state's energy load is served by agencies like Central Coast Community Energy. We have 33 counties and cities that make up our governance and territory. We go from Santa Cruz County all the way down to Santa Barbara County. We do not serve the city of Santa Barbara. They have their own CCA for the city. And then also the unincorporated areas of San Luis Obispo County are not currently part of our members. But we did just have a positive vote earlier this year from the city of Atascadero that decided to join. So we'll begin serving them at the beginning of 2023. Our governance is made up of 2 voting boards. We have a policy board made up of elected officials and an operations board, which is made up of city managers, city administrators, county administrators. And on top of that, we also have a community advisory council, and that is made up of various members of the community representing different interests, different expertise, and they serve in an advisory capacity on matters of our energy programs and also matters of policy that go to the board. For cities that have a population of under 50,000, there is a shared seat. So right now we have Council Member Amy Tomlinson from the City of Pacific Grove on our policy board, and your City Administrator, Chip Rierick, serving on our operations board. Thank you. So some of our recent accomplishments. We have a program in addition to our basic rate offering, we also have a rate a little more expensive to ensure that you're receiving 100% renewable power. And our enrollment in that program, which is called 3C Prime, has increased by 40% over the past year. We have 34 employees, 2 offices in Monterey, 1 in San Luis Obispo. And since our formation, we have invested more than $27 million in energy programs to serve our customers in this area. We've also received an A rating from S&P, and we were the first community choice aggregation agency to do so. Our goal as an agency is really pretty simple. We want to get to 100% renewable power as quickly as possible. So we have set a goal to do that by the year 2030. which is 15 years ahead of the state's goal. This chart here, I think I might need to improve it because it's a little difficult to know what we're seeing. But if you see, look at kind of the three straight lines on the chart. The top one is our goal of getting to 100% renewable by 2030. The middle one is the state's goal, and then the lowest one would be what we are required to do. And if you look at kind of the crooked blue line, that's where we are right now in terms of the energy, renewable energy that we've procured. So we're on track to hit 60% renewable by 2025. And I did just want to call a little bit of attention to our rates. Since we've started, we've maintained lower rates than Pacific Gas and Electric. But just an example of what happens when you have local elected officials making decisions about power and rates. During the height of the pandemic, our board voted to approve a 50% bill reduction during that time. And it's just something that I'm very proud of. We will also be giving a $100 rebate to all of our customers that benefit from income assistance programs this September. So in the city of Carmel, we have just over 97% of your residents and businesses enrolled in Central Coast Community Energy. And we've funded more than $47,000 in rebates for people that are buying electric vehicles, leasing electric vehicles. So it's been a very popular program. Something that I would also really like to call attention to, we started a program this year for our member agencies to help switch to electric vehicles for medium and heavy duty vehicles. We had many applicants to take advantage of this program, and the city of Carmel was successful in receiving a grant of $250,000. This will help the city, yes, to purchase an electric street sweeper, which is huge. I mean, it's just such a great story. And in doing this, the city is going to be avoiding the burning of 3,900 gallons of diesel fuel each year and reducing greenhouse gas emissions by over 31 metric tons of CO2 a year. So congratulations to the city. We're just so honored to be able to partner with you, and your staff did a fantastic job putting together that application. So some of the other programs that we offer, you can see listed here. In this fiscal year, we dedicated 4% of our operating budget, which is $14 million, to fund these programs. We have the electrification rebates for electric vehicles for residents, also chargers, rebates to electrify your heating and cooling systems in your homes and buildings. We have ag electrification, also funding to help affordable housing units be equipped to go electric in their heating and cooling systems, and also have chargers for vehicles. So these programs have been very successful, and we're getting ready in the new fiscal year to continue and improve many of them. Just a little bit more about Electrify Your Ride, because it is our most popular program. We offer between $2,000 and $4,000 for electric vehicle rebates. But I really want people to notice that it's not just a rebate for the vehicle. If you would also like to install a charger, we have funding to help with that as well. So we really want to help people make the entire transition and make it as easy as possible. In terms of our outreach and engagement, this year we adopted an underserved community outreach plan it's a really great effort by my staff to detail how are we going to reach all of our customers at all income levels and backgrounds, and what are the community-based organizations that we need to work with to make that happen. We've conducted 10 farm worker outreach events over the past fiscal year, and just been working to be out in the community and making sure that the word about our programs and the benefits that we offer are available. I also want to give a plug for our local vendor registry. It's really our mission to make sure our revenues are staying local. So if you have a business that you think could work with Central Coast Community Energy, please go to our website and register. We really do want to keep our business local. And with that, I'll share our social media information. I invite everyone to go to our Facebook page, follow us online, and thank you again. I'm happy to take any questions.
Catherine, thank you for being here tonight. Are there any questions by council members of Catherine? Catherine, obviously you did a good job, so thank you very much. Must be a pleasure being in this business.
Very much. Thank you, Mayor.
It's really exciting to see that you have such a goal that's going to be realized sooner than later, that you've cut that back even from what the state has. So thank you very much.
Especially in the area of wind generation. Offshore wind leases may be coming up off the entire Pacific coastline. That'll be interesting to see what kind of level of access you'll get to that.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're
Excellent.
very excited about that.
Excellent. Thank you, Catherine. Much appreciated.
Thank you.
Good job. Right now, not quite as scintillating, but the next item is digitizing and scanning records. I think, Brandon, you're handling that.
Thanks for the wonderful introduction, as always, Mr. Mayor.
My pleasure.
Appreciate that. Let me pull up a couple of things here for you. Close this one. All right. A long-awaited presentation about this item. I know you're all very excited. So I just wanted to let you know, oftentimes we come during budget season and we ask the council for money, and frankly ask the community for money too, because it's the city's budget. And I think it's important to come back and show you some of these initiatives that we've done, and show you essentially what you and the city have gotten for their money. So just a quick recollection for you. So if you recall, this project was for the scanning and digitizing of paper files that are in our offices here. Here's a picture, shows you 5,000 plus individual files taking up a lot of floor space, and frankly files that go back to the start of the city, 1916, and some of them are dying. They're just sitting there, not temperature controlled, they get rifled through all the time. So we took it upon ourselves to find a way to digitize them and then store them safely. So you can see what we've been doing is we've been going through emptying out file cabinets, boxing them up, sending them off for scanning, and then when they come back, they go right back out to a secure offsite location where it's temperature controlled, fireproof, humidity controlled, and so they'll live forever, as long as paper can live in a temperature controlled environment. But we can always call them back if we need to get the hard copies again, but we're not destroying anything, nothing's going away. In fact, those 4 cabinets you see right there, that's now where Aaron Campbell, who you met today, sits. So this was part of the initiative too, is we needed space for our new employees. So that's one of the things that this project did for us. So it's been a big boost, not only to the community, because I like to joke, you can look at your plans online 11 o'clock at night in your pajamas eating ice cream if you really want to find out what's going on your property. But it's also a big boon for staff time as well. Anytime somebody wanted to come in and review one of these physical files, we had to have one of our staff members sitting with them for an hour at a time. We were doing between 10 and 12 of these every couple weeks. So it's taking up quite a bit of staff time. So it's also freeing up staff time because people can now self-serve to find their own files. Let's see. So I'm going to show you, we're pretty far along. We're about 42% of the way through. That's what this map shows here. All the spaces in blue are areas that have been scanned, and people can now go and find those files online, which is pretty great. So we're on track to get this done, mid-early next year. So we're really proud of this effort. I think it's done a lot for the community to be able to access their files. So how does it work? Let me show you. You go to our planning website. There we go. And you click on our GIS mapping tool, and it takes you to the GIS map. Now this has always existed, this GIS map, but part of this project has also been to improve the map itself. So it does more than just show you where parcels are at. We have a lot of layers here on the side, that's what we call them in this world, but the layers are all these different things that you can turn off and on the map real time, and they're all parcel specific. So you can click to see which parcels in town are owned by us. If you're topography nerd and you want to find out the contour lines of elevations, you can go through and add those into the map for yourself. We have utilities on here, like where are the storm drain outlets, the storm pipes. We can show you where the parks and open space are, any sort of creeks. If you're a soils nerd, you can find out what type of soils we have in town. As you know, in the northeast part of town, we have really dense soils. It changes the type of development you can do. So we have all that information in here for people as well. The planning side of house, which I'm obviously partial to, you can see all of our overlay districts. So the archaeological overlay, where the appeal jurisdiction is for the Coastal Commission, community plans, park overlay. This is a really cool feature we added. You can click and find every historic property in town. And when you click on these, it'll give you real-time information. These are ones that are listed on the register. It gives you the name of the resource, the year it was built, and links to other information. We have traffic routes for trucks, bus routes. We also have some hazard layers as well. The one that we're probably all most familiar with would be our very high fire hazard severity zone. So you can click and turn that layer on. So that's just the GIS map. Those are just the layers that you can see. And this is an update that we've done not only for our staff, we use this quite a bit, but it's also interesting for the public and property owners. And if I can find 8th, so let's see, there's oceans, okay. So we'll just click on a property here. This is one I wanted to show you. So once you click on a property, there's a few extra pieces of information. All you used to get was just the APN and the zoning. Now we've added quite a bit of information in here. As I mentioned, for the historic resources, you have information about the name of the resource, the year it was built, who the architect was, the style. All this stuff has been added in there so people can find this out. We also include any of the overlays, like the appeal jurisdiction for the Coastal Commission, archaeological significance. And the cool thing about these links, including the zoning, is if you click on these, it magically takes you to our zoning code. So you can learn about those overlay districts. What can you do in them? What can't you do in them? What are they designed to do? So the map is meant to be very interactive. But the pièce de résistance, I'm sure I said that incorrectly, of this is being able to find your property files. This is really what the project is all about. So you click on the Find My Property Files, and it takes you to this. This is like an online file cabinet. All these files that are getting loaded that you saw in paper form, they go into this. They're keyed in by APN. As the APNs change, because we all know they do through the assessor's office, it'll be updated both in this online file cabinet and on the map so that we don't lose anything. So you have two options here. We separated out the large plans. These are, blueprints and things like that. And then the documents. So when you see those big files, people would come in and essentially just rifle through these in order to try to find specific documents. Now they're all in here for you. And the cool thing about this, among many things, is the quality, the scanning quality is really high. You can see I just zoomed in on that. And the quality of that scanning is really, really good. And not only is the scanning quality really good, but it's all completely searchable by keywords. So you can, let's say you got a neighbor with a fence in the right of way that you want to find out about. Not that that would ever happen, but we can search for the word fence.
Hypothetically.
And it'll pull up any occurrences of that. So you see there's 10 occurrences in here of the word fence. So you can scroll through all the documents, and not only does it word search for typewritten word, but actually we'll find handwritten words in here as well. So it's super high quality scanning. It has a lot of tech behind it. The other thing we did is we went through and we redacted sensitive information like social security numbers and things like that that would appear in these types of documents. So there's a lot to it. So what's the future of this? We're going to finish this project. We're going to get done with all of the files that we have in my office. And then we're going to move on to all of the building plans that we have up at Vista Lobos. We have a whole history of building plans, some of them also dating back to 1916, some of them drawn by very famous architects that are just sitting there unprotected. And so we're going to protect them here electronically and then move them off-site to store them physically. And then after that, we're going to look to add more features to our GIS map, which may in the future include becoming the permit system. A lot of cities use their GIS maps as their permitting system, where you say, here's my property, I click on my property, and you get all your options for submitting permits and things like that. So it's a much more user-friendly interface because people are comfortable with maps and visuals. So thank you for listening to that. I know you've all been on the edge of your seats for months now waiting for this, but I wanted to come back and show you this. Thank you for the opportunity to do this project and let you know that it is working, and I think we've got really good feedback from the community. Thank you.
Brandon, I really appreciate your presentation tonight. It is important that we understand where the public dollars spent. This is an excellent example of a really good return on our investment of public dollars. I think it makes it much more user-friendly, makes it much more accessible, makes a big difference, honestly.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am. Karen, Karen, did you have something you want to say? I'm sorry, what?
She wants to ask Brandon a question.
Oh. What a question?
She wants to, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead, yeah.
You know, I found this very fascinating, and I'm wondering if you're going to have some public outreach to teach people how to use this, that you could do in a group like you just went through for us.
Thank you for that comment. You know, we've celebrated this a few times in the Friday letter, but I think once it's really, once we get maybe past that 50-60% scanning, I think it would be a nice idea to maybe record a video that people can watch rather than having to host a meeting and people have to come to it. Just use it as a resource on our website where people can watch a quick tutorial. I mean, it doesn't have to be as long and as boring as what I just did. It could be much faster than that for people to understand how this works, because maps are so naturally intuitive. You click on where you live, you click on the thing that says, show me my property files. It's pretty easy, but I think still people need a little bit of training on how to use it. So thank you, that's a good comment.
Also, you know, I recall looking at my file one time, and it was, I think the garage was designed on a napkin or something. I mean, it was really primitive.
Yeah.
So you're able to pick up all those.
Yeah, and the cool thing about the company that we use, we went through a whole RFP process for this. We had like 12 responding quotes. They can scan anything, and the quality is the same on all of them. And it doesn't have to be your standard 8.5 by 11. It doesn't have to be a 24 by 36. They actually have literally scanned some napkins into the file because they have big feeders and they have flatbeds and all this stuff. So this is what they do. This company just does scanning, and they are really good at it.
Okay, and one last question. You said you removed some things.
Yeah, so like personally identifiable information. So think social security numbers.
Okay.
So this company's technology has the ability to search for certain types of information and go through and digitally redact it. So we have files in there that may have personal information like social security numbers, and they just take it right out of there.
Okay,
so it's
so
not
that
online.
will be reassuring to the public.
Yeah, and to that note also, just to talk about security, so architectural plans are the intellectual property of an architect. So we have disclaimers on here, and the large plans are locked down so you can't download them. They're viewable without permission from the architect. So it says right on there, you have to get permission from the architect in order to be able to copy these.
That's great, Brendan. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank
Any
you.
other questions or comments? Thanks, Brandon. All right, before we go to announcements, we do have one person who wanted to speak under public comments, but was unable to get into the building. I believe William is outside and would like to speak. William, if you'd like to speak now would be a good time. There's a 3-minute limitation on your testimony.
Thank you very much. And I just would first say that I would appreciate being able to speak before the council in person, but I do appreciate you working with me. So I would say, I guess can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. Dear council members, I will be speaking on behalf of my mother and myself and respectfully request that I'm afforded 3 minutes for each of us. I come before the council to address code violations by our uphill neighbors that the city has refused to enforce. We previously spoke to the council on January 8, 2019 regarding the multiple code violations that the planning department refused to enforce. It came to our attention via the front page Pinecone article of July 15, 2022, that the council reviewed the matter of Connie May, who had a history of code violations since 2019, and the council acted appropriately by finding her and requiring the removal of non-permitted work. Councilwoman Ferlito is quoted, "What I hope is learned from this is that you must ask for permission. You cannot beg for forgiveness afterwards when you break the rules so consistently." It was heartbreaking for my mother and me to learn that the council took action in this matter, but refused to address the more egregious and harmful violations that we previously brought before the council relating to our uphill neighbors' wantonly reckless actions. The council refused to act on our behalf at that time. Instead, they deferred the matter to Mr. Weiner, his subordinates, and Glenn Nzingo and Chip Rarick, who all stated that it was a civil matter. The council's refusal to deal with our situation led my 84-year-old mother, a 60-year resident of Carmel, on a fixed income to be forced into a costly and lengthy civil trial because the city refused to perform its ministerial duty to enforce codes. In stark contrast to the egregious violations of Ms. May, the extremely harmful actions of our neighbors far outweigh any code violations by Ms. May. The fact that the council fined her and required her to rectify her repeated violations, but did not do the same to our neighbors for much more serious offenses shows an arbitrary and capricious enforcement of the application of codes. The verdict of the civil case stated my mother was being harmed by the trespass of the uphill neighbor's drainage system. The situation is still unresolved because of the refusal of the defendants to take responsibility for their actions and correct their non-permittable drainage system, as well as numerous other violations. They have shown a pattern of wanton disregard for codes and an attitude that rules do not apply to them. 2 days ago, on July 31st, 2022, my mother documented their continued flagrant disregard of the codes and the permitting process. Our neighbors recently made changes to their previously unpermitted storm drainage system, again, without seeking permits. We are coming before the council to demand that the codes are enforced and our rights under the 14th Amendment of equal protection under the law are upheld. The violations described in the article pale in comparison to the violations that we have had to endure. Those violations by Ms. May, though egregious, were not destroying the property of her neighbors, nor could they be considered as potentially life-threatening. Our neighbors have broken the rules for years with no consequences. My mother filed numerous complaints with the city in 2017 to no avail.
William, your time is up. William,
I have,
I'm happy to go ahead and see you. Did you want your mother to speak?
I am speaking for my mother. I stated that in the first.
All right, no, fine.
Okay.
You can see, your mother can cede her time to you.
Can you see my mother right here?
I agree.
Okay.
Thank you.
So our neighbors have broken the rules for years with no consequences. My mother filed numerous complaints with the city in 2017 to no avail. I have here city documents, including building plans and a schematic submitted by the neighbors that prove code violations. Without seeking a permit, Carol Chudlinski and Patty Garfield installed western and eastern storm drainage systems, which are destroying my mother's home and that violate municipal code, California drainage law, and California plumbing code. Without seeking a permit, the neighbors also installed a red brick patio that with a slanted concrete step that is their central drainage system, which also violates the aforementioned codes. Without seeking a permit, they also built approximately 20,000-pound outdoor stone fireplace near our property line, which is listing towards our property. If there's a catastrophic failure in the structure, it could kill my mother or me. Both the surcharge of the red bricks and the fireplace have been placed above a retaining wall that has not been structurally engineered to bear that weight, which is unpermittable and extremely dangerous to our safety. They have also constructed a non-permittable domicile above their garage with a glass door and balcony that allows them to view into our bathroom, which invades our privacy. The plans on file with the city shows the area above the garage was permitted as an attic with a drop-down staircase within the garage, not a domicile with an external entrance which invades our privacy. They also perjured themselves at the planning department when seeking a permit for low voltage DC work, when in fact former building inspector Alpha Sulo saw Romex cable at the time, which is used for AC work. We have photos before and after their unpermitted electrical work. They also perjured themselves by claiming that they only replaced the storm drainage system they alleged was previously existing, which is provably false. They have a history of hiding and destroying evidence that would show their egregious actions. My mother and I have repeatedly requested former and current city arborists to require the neighbors to remove a dead oak tree near our property line, which is a hazard that could also cause bodily harm. Even after being told to remove that hazard, they have refused to do so for many years. The fact that the council required Ms. May to adhere to the codes and seek appropriate permits clearly shows the council has the power and obligation to right these wrongs. We insist the matter be resolved immediately due to the potential for great bodily harm and further destruction of my mother's property. As stated in the Pinecone, Ms. Ferlito remarked that Ms. May will have to do a lot of work to tear out the unpermitted work. My mother demands that our neighbors also are required to tear out their multiplicity of unpermitted work. My mother and I also demand Mayor Potter recuse himself from this matter because of the fact his wife is friends with Carol and Patty. As public officials, you have taken an oath to uphold the Constitution of the United States. And lastly, we demand an immediate hearing before the council to address in detail these dangerous violations and the consistent rule breaking by our neighbors. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak.
Thank you, William. Thank you for your testimony. I appreciate it. Thank you, Mother, for her attendance also.
You're very welcome.
All righty, that will conclude tonight's public comments, I believe. Before I go on to public announcements, I want to just point out one order of business tonight, which will be slightly changed. If the council concurs, I'd like to move up item number 4 instead of item number 3, since Councilmember Richards and I need to recuse ourselves from the Old Bears issue because of our proximity to our residents to the property. So if that's okay with everybody? Thank you. Then we will depart the meeting after the conclusion of the testimony on number 4 and decision by council. All right, City Administrator, Chip, what do you got?
I've said enough already tonight. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
City Attorney, I don't think you have anything of substance to report.
Yes, there's no reportable action from our closed sessions last night.
Council members' announcements, looking to my right?
None.
Nothing to my left?
Yes, I'd like to say something, please. A very important member of our community passed away Friday. He didn't live in Carmel, but he served Carmel for many, many years. Back in the late 80s, or the early 80s actually, 83, when the storms hit Carmel, Dave Schonman was part of the group of people that put our scenic road back together, put our beach back together. He was a coastal biologist, but he was a teacher too. He served to help us create a shoreline management plan. He has advised our community over and over when we've had questions or concerns about the shoreline. He contributed to the wonderful climate change and action report, and it's just it's a sad time. Even though he didn't live here, he was part of our city. And Doug Schmitz wrote a few words. I'm just going to paraphrase, but there are in every city, but especially Carmel-by-the-Sea with our elderly population, those who do good towards their neighbors, pick up mail at the post office or a prescription drug from Carmel Drug, or water their plants when a neighbor is away, quiet acts of kindness. And then there are those who make a significant difference in communities for which they remain anonymous, nameless flames who at a certain time, usually in a critical situation, were the candle burning bright, forgotten heroes. And he goes on to talk about a few of those, but Dave Schonman was one of our unsung heroes. He came at the right time, that candle of light in those dark days of the late 80s, after the 82-83 storms had wreaked havoc on our beach and bluffs and scenic road. He and Greg and Bob Royston, in concert with the Citizens Committee, took a setting of beauty, Carmel Beach, and its bluffs, and made it better, as well as safer and fortified. If this village had a Hall of Fame, David's plaque should hang on it. And while we don't have a Hall of Fame, we do have a Carmel Hall of Heaven, and today David strolls in it. So I just thought I would make those remarks on one of our unsung heroes who has passed away. And I hope if any of you worked with Dave Schonman, you will remember what a nice man, what a teacher, what a thoughtful person, and how much he cared for our Carmel shoreline. Thank you.
Karen, that was very eloquently said. I think it would be appropriately adjourned tonight in Dave Schonman's memory.
Thank you.
I'll make that note at the end of the
Thank you,
meeting.
Mayor Potter. I think that's very appropriate.
Well done. All right, that moves us on to the consent item calendar. There's 11 items on the consent calendar. Is there any member of the council that would like to pull an item?
I would like to comment on number 2.
All righty.
Under monthly reports.
Anybody else want to pull anything? So for comment only, Karen?
Yes.
Okay, why don't you comment?
Well, I am delighted to see that such great work is commencing on the short-term rentals. I think with the addition of staff, that is going to be a very positive thing. They have proliferated, and you read in the report, almost 500% since last year. And this is a problem in our community, and I would urge any citizen who thinks they have a short-term rental in their neighborhood to please contact the planning department, because now we have more people working on this issue. So thank you very much for that addition to that wonderful staff you have, Brandon. Thank you.
Is there anybody in the public wishing to pull an item from the consent calendar? 11, all right. Is that for comment? Comment or? All right, why don't you, is there anybody else in the public wishing to pull an item? All right, why don't you come forward then and speak to 11 now? Item number 11 is a resolution 2022-073, authorizing the erection of tents on public property for the 5th annual Prancing Ponies event.
Yes, thank you, Council. It's wonderful to be here tonight with most of our neighbors watching. I'm concerned about the absence of our Concourse events, and I speak to the one that we've had on Tuesday, which was just genuinely special in the right place for it to be. That hasn't materialized yet, but we have lost one.
Excuse me, sir. You need to pull your mask up so it covers your nose. Your mask needs to cover your nose. There you go.
Yeah.
Okay.
I appreciate that. Thank you for that advice. The Thursday event, which has in the past had been a tradition of being a neighbor with Pebble Beach, and a couple of our city officials and one of our Rotarians, Paul Woutenberg, put that together. It was a wonderful idea, and I think we're struggling. We don't have that now. Will we be able to have that, or are we going to have the event Prancing Ponies take that and continue? Thank you. Doesn't fit so well.
Trying to be subtle.
So that's my concern. Just my concern for we get the right event, and I'm hoping that will happen, or we'll get back and negotiate with Pebble Beach so that we can have the lunch here in Devendorf Park and have the cars here again. Is there any questions about that's the meat of my comments, and thank you for listening to me. I appreciate it. Any questions that maybe Ashley could fill me in on some things that I don't know, but I'm a little bit unsure of what that event will be like on Thursday. Now, I either missed that or maybe it hasn't been discussed that much, but that's what we have now. And I don't know how long it is. Anyway, thank you. I think my time is
Thank
up.
you, sir. Appreciate your testimony.
Mr. Mayor, I know it's a little bit unprecedented, but Ms. Wright sent you an email today that describes the two events that we have this year, and we'll make those available in the Friday letter this week, just to outline for Mr. Iverson and the rest of the public, again, the Tuesday Acura event, and then the Thursday Prancing Ponies, which again talks about how many cars and where they are. So hopefully that'll be helpful,
Yeah,
sir.
that's great. And again, I'm Carl Iverson. I don't think I said that. Thank you.
Thank you, Carl. Appreciate it. All right, is there anybody else with a concern of consent calendar? All right, seeing no one, I'll bring it back to council for action. Council members, and the motion to adopt would be appropriate.
I'll make the motion we adopt the current consent agenda items, 1 through 11.
And I'll second that. I would like to say I neglected to thank Jeff and Carrie and Agnes and the whole committee for that incredible climate action report. It really was amazing. Thank you.
Thank you. Well said. We have a motion and a second. Nova, could you call the roll, please?
Yes. Councilmember Barron?
Yes.
Councilmember Ferlito?
Yes.
Councilmember Tice?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Richards?
Yes.
Mayor Potter?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Right, that brings us over to orders of business for the evening. There's two items under that heading. The first one is receive an update on the farmers market and adopt a resolution authorizing the consumption of alcohol at the farmers market Thursday events through October 31st, 2022, to be held in Devendorf Park. Ashley, I believe you have the floor.
Excuse me, Mayor.
Yes.
I think I have to recuse myself from both A and B of orders of business tonight due to my proximity of where I live.
You're all right. Thank you. Don't go far.
All right. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for allowing me to present to you this evening on the farmers market. Let's get into it. The farmers market has been held every Thursday, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. It's now on Mission Street and 6th Avenue. It started out there, it's been at Sunset Center, and now it's been back here for at least the last 4 years, back on Mission and 6th Streets. In 2019, the Community Activities Department undertook an RFP to find a new farmers market manager. Things were kind of languishing, and our former manager wanted to focus solely on doing the produce side of things, which they had done previously. We were lucky enough to find Good Roots Events, Inc., and awarded them a contract in January of 2020, so great timing on that. We did, after sussing out where the pandemic kind of was leading and what it looked like for returning to outdoor types of things, relaunched the farmers market again in June of 2020 with masks on, and that encouraged. And since then, the market has really grown. We have new vendors in. There's a vibrancy and a feeling that wasn't there prior to this. It feels like something's happening, even if it's just a regular farmers market day. And I'm really pleased that we went with Good Roots. I was a little, they had young and had ideas, and I'm glad we went with that. They also are run by a local boy, Carmel Valley, so he knows the area, he knows the producers, and he's invested in contributing back to the community. Went to Carmel High School. We have talks about how we can get high school involved, and is there opportunities. One of the first things he talked about was scholarship opportunities, so I'm really pleased that Good Roots is with us and is happy to work with the city of Carmel-by-the-Sea on our farmers market. Since this launched, we have continued to work with them. I talk with our market manager, obviously, weekly. We report out to the Community Activities Commission on any changes, large or small, to the event, and receive feedback at those monthly meetings from members of the public, whether it's on signage or how come this type of vendor was here. And we continually recalibrate how we're holding the farmers market. And because this is, of course, farmers and produce based, there are changes throughout the year in how many produce vendors we'll have versus other types of vendors, and it's cyclical. So and we talk about that and who is scheduled to be there. We also undertook an initiative to include community groups, and this kind of was spurred out of the pandemic. How do our community groups make connections, get volunteers, talk about what they're doing, talk about fundraisers and things like that? And so we came up with a little policy for including community groups every week, and we'll be having a huge community group fair in September. So we're just finalizing some of the details for that, which I'll be sharing out with the community, and we're excited to be doing that. And then we, of course, continue to work closely with our environmental compliance, making sure we've got compostable bags. I know it's not perfect. Our vendors we're not the only market that they're at, and so there's education outreach, but we have that continually at our forefront to make sure that we are minimizing our waste, as always at all events, but at the farmers market as well. The third Thursday idea is an old idea, and this comes from the inception of the farmers market. Councilmember Tice is nodding her head. She was a part of that first committee that was formed over 8 years ago to form the farmers market, and I think that's important that this is acknowledged, this third Thursday idea, which is something that would showcase our local chefs, local produce, our vendors that are there, and arts and music. I'll note that our farmers market occurs during the work week, during the work day. So if you can get time during your lunch break and you work here in town, you can come, or if you are local and aren't working, you can come. But this is an opportunity for people to participate in the market after work and see what is happening. And so we have been talking about this idea and likely would have been coming forward with it sooner had it not been for the pandemic. But I know our market manager has been excited about it as we've been continuing our conversations on ideas for the market and improvements. So it finally came together, and we've been talking about it and just decided to go for it, because sometimes you can't talk about things anymore. And so this last third Thursday, our first third Thursday was held in July from 5 to 8. So some of our vendors rolled into the park. There was food, there was strawberry shortcake and whipped cream. There was music, 2 different bands played. There were art demonstrations, woodworking and metalwork, screen printing, all from locals. So I'm talking about people who are here on the peninsula serving our communities. It also featured activities for children. So there was ceramics painting, there were just paper painting. There were child-sized picnic tables, which was a detail that I thought was just tremendous.
a lot of young families for this first event in the park. There with their picnic blankets, parents were able to enjoy socializing with each other, listening to music while their kids played and painted in this, safety of our park. This event did not feature alcohol. This had originally been planned for, as you all well know, we need permission for that. There were delicious mocktails, and during the event, actually, I was working with the market manager, and we were kind of observing how things were playing out. This isn't a make or break request for us. It's less work for them to have alcohol. I think it is an expectation of the community that this would be an option at events. I'd like to be able to offer that if that's the direction we go. But as said, it is not necessarily a factor that will guarantee the success of the event. I think continuing to evaluate, what works and what doesn't is an important piece of this. I would like to continue testing out the third Thursday program through the end of October. I understand that, of course, Car Week falls during the third week, so we'll do it the last week. But I'd like to test it out and get some feedback from the community and see what our attendance is at the event, and potentially continue this beta testing over into next year, because that's just 4 months worth of work on this and after actions. I say October and not continually every month going forward, because I think that is almost the end of our good weather. Also daylight savings time. It adds a whole nother element when we're lighting the park in general, and I'm very cognizant of what that is like for events, especially if we're doing an event that is ongoing. And so I would think that we would keep third Thursday something that is seasonal, and go from there. So as such, I'm requesting permission for this serving of alcohol in the future at our third Thursday events as an option that we have going forward if we don't keep with mocktails, and as we continue to assess how the third Thursdays work out each month going forward through October if the council is amenable. And I'm open for any questions and feedback from our community.
Are there any questions of Ashley by council members before I open it up to the public? I don't see any. Is there anybody in the public wishing to speak to this item tonight? Nova, do you see anybody? Zoom-wise?
I don't see anyone on Zoom. No one has their hand raised.
All right, nobody in the house here. All right, I'll close the public comment period, bring it back to council for direction. Council members. Carrie.
Thank you, Ashley. I really appreciate, like you said, it's been 8 years, and it's really been an evolution. And it's a great example of starting something in Carmel, and it just is, we improved upon it. And you and the Community Activities Commission, I really appreciate you took the time to take a look at what was going well and what wasn't. And doing the RFP for the new market manager was huge. So it's really become a Community Thursday, and I really appreciate what it's become, and that you guys are always looking at how to make it a little different and improve upon it. So I really appreciate that. And at first it started out, it kind of limped along a little bit, but I think it's, when you go there now, it's well attended. So I like I like the Thursday idea. I liked it back then, I like it now. My question is, did you and the market manager think about maybe featuring a wine tasting room? For
this first one, we actually started off with one of our local restaurateurs to do mixed drinks. But yes, everything is on the table. All of the shelves are welcome. In fact, I was speaking with the executive director of Visit Carmel today about doing outreach, and I have attended some restaurant improvement district meetings and spoken to that group about the farmers market in particular, but also their participation in the market, either just telling people, hey, we've got these great, here's some great canapes, come to the restaurant, here's why we're unique in doing these things, but also in particular for third Thursday, so tasting rooms, restaurateurs. That is the point, is that we have our local people involved here in Carmel-by-the-Sea.
And I think you're right about keeping the daylight savings time Thursday event so that way people know when it's going to be. So I think that was a great idea, so thank you.
Any other comments or questions?
Yes, I attended the farmer's market every week, and I think it has, as you've said, evolved and just gotten better all the time. It's attractive, it's fun, we see a lot of people, and I do like the incorporation of the different community groups. I think it's wonderful that Brandon and Chip are there sometimes to talk to residents. I like it that the policemen have been there several times. That's been really terrific. It's a nice, friendly place to meet up and talk to people. I also attended the first Thursday night event, and I was pleasantly surprised to see so many young families there. I don't think that it was necessary to have alcohol. I thought it was a fine event, and people enjoyed it without the alcohol. The one thing that does trouble me every week is that people still bring dogs right through the middle of the farmer's market and walk right past the no dog signs. And that Thursday night, there were dogs in the park, and with so many wonderful little children rolling around in the grass, playing in there, it's really important that we have more signage about the dogs, I think. I think that, I want it to be a healthy place, and gosh, Catherine was there with her little toddler Reed and rolling around in the grass, and, it's just, I think that for me, a little improvement in the signage about dogs, and I have a dog who I leave on the sidewalk when I go. But I'm not really interested in the alcohol part of it. I think it changes the event quite a bit. And I think like what Carrie said, keeping it to daylight savings time hours is good. I think that the problem with the alcohol is that it can migrate out of the park, and that could become a problem. We are not New Orleans, where you walk around with a drink, and so that I just don't know how you curtail it and keep that from happening.
So can I ask, isn't that the intent of the trial period of 3 months, to see if it works and develop, kind of identify any bugs that might be in the problem?
Yes, exactly. So for instance, Councilmember Ferlito, I spoke with Councilmember Ferlito at Third Thursday, and we noticed the dogs. The dogs are continually a challenge. Some people are verbally abusive to us at the market itself, and the market manager when we ask them to remove their dogs. It's not pleasant. I can tell you that. And some people are just passing through, but it is a whole thing to talk to a person with a dog and ask them politely to leave. They're not open to it. However, we do have our VIPs, our volunteers in uniform, who help us with our events and gently talk about these type of things. And signage is great, and we will continue to have signage, but I think working with our VIPs to make sure we have that presence at the market so that they can help support us in doing that kind of outreach and talking to people about why this rule is in place is very important. And as far as the alcohol goes, yes, this is beta testing for that. Things would definitely be fenced off in accordance with all ABC laws. I know people can hand things over fences and do nefarious things. My hope would be that would not be the case, but that's why we're testing things out to see how it goes.
Any other questions or comments? Jeff?
Yeah, thank you, Ashley. Don't really go away. I will say I did appreciate both Carrie and Karen's comments about alcohol in the park. I'm a little reticent. Chip has remarked in the past that the city has a sort of a storied history without the public consumption of alcohol and whatnot. So I'm a little bit wary of that. I was wondering, perhaps we could allow beer and wine and sort of ixnay the mixed drinks. It seems like beer and wine is a little bit more appropriate for a community event rather than gin and tonics and Manhattans and whatnot. And also, I sort of liked where Carrie was going with the local wine tasting rooms, and I'm sure you've thought about this too, local wine tasting rooms and restaurants and all that. So that all sounds good to me. I have a little bit of a concern that we're creating an event for non-residents, and that it'll become sort of a regional Thursday party. I don't know, we talked about this a little bit, and I would ask that when if you have this sort of trial period, whether it's 3 months or whether we give you 3 months now and then we go into next year, that at the end of sort of that trial period, when you come back to us with sort of the results of that you can tell us, what percentage of the people are sort of 93921 people or sort of, sphere of influence people as opposed to people from Monterey or something like that. I'd like to sort of keep this. I would be interested in keeping the size of the event down a little bit, making it a real community event for our community, not for sort of the entire peninsula. So that's a concern of mine.
Yes, and we can gather that information. We've kind of been doing that informally. I think I mentioned to you, Councilmember Barron, the Friends of the Library are out at the market frequently, and they chat with people and talk to them about where they're from and what brought them to our market. And so we can definitely use that mechanism and our market manager to collect information to give us a sense of who's attending our events for the Third Thursday initiative.
Yeah, I think that would be that would address my concerns.
So I could weigh in on this, I guess. I mean, I appreciate my colleagues' concerns. I concur with most of them. I do think the 3-month test period is appropriate. I'd look for a real definitive report on the goods and the bads, the pros and the cons of it, and then we can make another action accordingly. But I do think a test period is a good idea.
I do have a question. We do have ordinances against drinking alcohol on public property. And if this went forward, would it require a change of the Muni Code? Or is this considered a special event for limited duration?
It would be considered a special event for limited duration for this test period.
Which has been historically granted in the past, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
Yeah.
and usually, I mean, this will be 3 events going forward, and this is the request for permission to serve alcohol is not, guarantee is not quite the right word, but it doesn't mean that we will be having alcohol. If we'd like to have the option to be able to serve beer or wine or work with a tasting room to do it. So just for this period in time, those 3 months, August, September, and October.
Okay, and with the new ABC laws, the market manager would be
Everything
the
would be-
person going
Mhm.
through the training?
Exactly, yes.
Okay,
All right, we've had a discussion, we've asked some questions, do we have a motion?
So just to clarify, Councilmember Felitos, every restaurant or wine tasting room that is serving alcohol has to go through that training. So now, in addition to others, so everybody is required to do that. So it's a trial period, so, I'm thinking, can we kind of give them the leeway to consider alcohol for just, we're talking really September and October right now, because it would probably end and then not start up again until March of next year for the Thursday?
The following year, yeah. I was thinking a little later than that, maybe May or June, depending on where our event schedule is, whatever else is happening with our spring calendar, since this is the first time we're doing this. So yeah, the timing when we start will be informed by how this goes.
We would have August, Councilmember Tice, because it would be moved to the 4th week, though, so it'd be
Yeah,
three-
right.
three.
So we wouldn't have this Thursday in August because of Car Week.
We would have the 4th Thursday.
We'll do it on the 4th Thursday.
Oh, you'll do it
Fourth
the
Thursday.
following
on the
week.
fourth
Oh, I missed
Thursday.
that.
Yeah,
I
I apologize for
Yeah,
not
no,
clarifying that.
I just didn't hear that. So I'd like to make a motion that we allow the third Thursday event to have alcohol for this trial period of August, September, and October, and then bring it back for consideration.
I'll second it. Any other discussion?
Yeah,
Jeff?
is that just beer and wine, like local beer and wine, or is it?
Well,
what's that?
I'm trying to give, they've been doing a good job of making good decisions on what to offer, so I was going to kind of give them some leeway here. So I'm up for that, but
Yeah, then I'm having a little bit of trouble with it. I would make a substitute motion that we allow with the parameters that Councilmember Tice used, but only allowing beer and wine without mixed drinks.
Do you have a second to that? Feels for like a second. Could offer an amended motion.
I mean,
No, I'm okay. We've spoken. I'm fine with it.
Alright.
staff is okay with that amendment. I have no problem working with the market manager on that and issuing mixed drinks. That's not a problem. Like I said, this is just testing, so we're not married to anything at this point in time. Just want the options.
Okay, so Carrie, you're not going to amend your motion as stands as it is?
I'm still, I'd like to just have it open so that they make up their mind. So at this point, I'm not being specific about just wine and beer.
Okay, we'll call the question, and we have a motion and a second.
So I thought Jeff did a
It
substitute.
failed for lack of
But
second.
nobody
He didn't second
seconded
it.
it.
Oh, okay. Got it.
Call the roll, please.
It's a
Roll
little
call.
hard to
Okay.
hear.
Councilmember Barron?
Yes.
Councilmember Ferlito?
No, I support the event, but not the alcohol.
Councilmember Tice?
Yes?
Mayor Potter?
Aye.
Motion carries 3-1-1 with Mayor Pro Tem recused.
All righty, Ashley, don't go far. You have the next item, I believe. Next item is discuss and provide necessary direction on the pumpkin roll event.
All right. So here we go. Pumpkin Roll 2022. The Pumpkin Roll was held from 2015 to 2019. And this was until 2020 when COVID-19, of course, forced the cancellation of all of our special events. You'll also recall that we were slow to start events up again in 2021 because we weren't sure where the state was going with restrictions, and it was a very fraught time for special events and trying to figure some of those things out. The Community Activities Commission recently discussed the pumpkin roll and its return. Staff is not in favor of it, which I'll go into. Part of the discussion was I don't think that sustainability is an issue, so the growing of the pumpkins and then smashing them for composting was not seen as an issue by some of the members of the group. If it did go away, and some weren't in favor of continuing the pumpkin roll, they'd like to see something tied in with the farmers market, potentially a third Thursday thing that's pumpkin related. We did have our Pumpkins on Parade initiative in 2020 when people we could not do our Halloween parade, we couldn't do our typical types of things, and so we used the farmers market as a way to do some outreach to the community through pumpkins. There was some concern voiced that this is the only family event in the city, or that specifically the city organizes, but we do have a number of other events, and that this concern is the event is only for locals. This is the only one that the city organizes that's only for locals. I will note that we have Breakfast with the Bunny, Sandcastle contest, holiday tree lighting if you've ever been in Devendorf Park during the holidays with our menorah lighting and everything like that. I think every school-aged children is in the park during that time. As I mentioned earlier, we've continued to work with our environmental compliance manager on improving waste diversion, not only for the farmers market, but for all of our special events. This comes from not only wanting to be good stewards of the environment for ourselves as just individual humans, but this is a council goal and a goal that the Community Activities Commission adopted as part of their strategic plan. So we've been looking at all of our events with these eyes since we adopted our plan, which was back in late 2018, 2019. We worked to build this strategic plan in tandem with what the council was doing at the time. So continuing to minimize our event impacts too on our green spaces. So before we do events, I try to remember to work with our city forester and make sure the park looks nice, that we aren't
going to impact any work that's been done negatively, that we're making sure events that are happening on the beach are cleaned up after. All of those things are very, very important. And that is part of the reason and the mechanism in place for our permits. We adhere to those same types of regulations. We ask ourselves those same questions as outside organizers do to keep things safe and to make sure that the impacts on our natural environment are minimal. And hand in hand with this is these smaller and medium-sized things support larger initiatives like the Climate Change Action Plan. I know it seems small. I know I've heard the same things you have about corporations are really the ones that need to be doing the things they need to do, and that's true, but also the changes that we can make can't hurt. And I think when we do things as a city, like replace all of our lights so that they're energy efficient and we're saving money there. We just had community choice here talking about power and things like that. I think it's important for us as a city to recognize and adopt. And so, again, looking at all of our events with this in mind, I took a look at the pumpkin roll and thought about how we're growing pumpkins in a drought to smash them, which is fun, but is it advisable? And so that's why we started this conversation. The other thing I want to talk about, and this kind of came up in the last discussion, and it's not the point of this issue here, but it is important, and it may be something that council considers in the future, but events geared towards locals or families versus visitors. And I think locals should be defined for purposes of conversation going forward at some point, because is it 93921? Is it sphere of influence? Is it the greater peninsula as our community? Because we all interact with each other and support each other. All of the events that the city organizes are free and open to the public. And again, those are events like Breakfast with the Bunny that was taken over from us by our Lions, Sandcastle contest that we partner with the American Institute for Architects for the Monterey Bay chapter, our Halloween and birthday parade, holiday tree and menorah lighting. So these are some of our big events that, again, are open and free to everybody. Visitor participation has been a part of our events, and I think it's an important part of our events. I don't think we're not marketing specifically to entice visitors here to come to our events. When we advertise, we're advertising in the pine cone. We're putting posters up in the post office, we're communicating and through the Friday letter. This isn't going out to the international newsletter of the world saying, come to the Halloween parade. That would be an interesting turnout, but that's not what the purpose of these events is. And there was some talk probably about 6-8 years ago of building events in to draw that. We have Car Week. Car Week does that. That's not the point of these events. However, when we have events downtown, when we have events in direct proximity to our tour bus parking, it's going to be an inevitability unless we start fencing off events and checking IDs. So I just want this to put this in your brains when we talk, when we use this type of language, visitors and locals, that there are larger implications for that, and I think it's important. And I think it's important too, when we did some community conversations with the library a few years back, we talked about who is part of the community and who isn't, and why they are not or may not be a part of the community, why they not be considered part of the community. And there were people that I spoke with that were second homeowners that were visiting and part of the Women's Club group that we were talking about, or another group that we were talking about, or had retired here and had started out as visitors who stumbled across the 4th of July event. And I know there are a great many people in our community who travel, who appreciate experiences like that, and I don't think that we should, again, we're not advertising in the bigger international newsletter, but visitor participation is important because it could be for a new community member visiting us who's charmed and feels welcome, and that's good. And it brings people back to town, or it recommends people who stay in our hotels. But again, these are in mind for people who live here, who are here most of the time. Families and our residents are in mind when we're planning these events. So with the pumpkin roll, the options I presented in the staff report are one, as the CAC directed staff to do, work with the farmer's market manager on something pumpkin related. for Halloween. I know there's some outreach we can do on pumpkin rolls. Jessica Wico, who was here earlier, and I are talking about a sustainability grant that we can get from the California State Library. So is there opportunity there? Option two, an outside group or organization that's very passionate about this could potentially take over the pumpkin roll. This was the case with Breakfast with the Bunny back in the late 80s, I believe. And we're happy to share the blueprints of what we figured out over the years to make that event as safe as it could possibly be, because it is scary to stand at the top of the hill and be responsible for something and watch those pumpkins careening down. I can tell you that. And I hope that they won't bounce on some rock that you didn't fix or sweep out of the way as you were preparing. So, but happy to show how we refined that event year after year to try to make it safe. And then option three, of course, is to direct staff to hold the pumpkin roll. And again, with all of our events, we've talked about this, we're continually doing after actions and looking for ways to streamline things. I want our events to be sustainable. You saw we had 27 new staff members here in the room. I can't hold the events without staff. We do use volunteers for certain events. Pumpkin roll is heavy on staff because of the heavy lifting, because of the heavy equipment we need to do to set up. So we're always looking for ways to improve and streamline, and pumpkin roll is a tough one. But I think I'm here to answer any questions you may have about pumpkin roll and the logic behind this, and happy to hear your feedback.
So before we go any further, I don't have a question right now. I just want to augment.
I have a question too.
Slightly. What? Where did that come from? God? God, is that you?
We're dead.
Okay, so anyway, look, the staff recommended the cancellation of the event due to concerns about waste of resources in a drought to grow pumpkins with the express purpose of destroying them for fun. I reached out to a friend of mine, Lou Calcagno, who owns a dairy farm out in Moss Landing. He said his cows would be glad to devour those on an as-needed basis. So what we can do is, I'm happy to hold them myself or whatever, but he is willing to take those. He's had a history of doing this in the past. I think that kind of moots that issue about them being destroyed for fun. They will be consumed by cows who will eat anything, apparently. So I think that kind of addresses that issue. So with that said, questions, Ashley, by staff? Okay, is there anybody in the public wishing to speak to this item tonight? Yes, please come forward.
Hi there, John Turner, Carmel resident, and we actually...
Yeah, I have a question.
We actually live right nearby where the pumpkin roll goes. We live literally right across from the Forest Lodge. We live right on
John, I hate to interrupt you, but how long will you need for your testimony? It's a 3-minute limitation for each one of you, but if each one of you is going to take 3 minutes.
So here's what I want to say is we think that it's a fun, family-oriented event. Children absolutely love it. It is something that is very community-based. It is a local event, but also visitors come as well. I think it also speaks to the essential residential character of Carmel as a whole, and I don't think it has to be wasteful. I think there are some things that can be done, which you alluded to yourself, that can make things less wasteful. So I'm going to see if they want to say anything.
I also think that another way to reuse the pumpkins would be to have people label their pumpkins, and at the end we could have pumpkin carving in the park. So then families or children could then take their pumpkins home, because usually it's about 2 weeks prior to Halloween that the event's held, and that could just be everyone's pumpkin that they carve and take home for Halloween. So that's another creative way to reuse the pumpkins. But anyways, we actually have a party every year for the pumpkin roll, and we have friends that actually come as far as Salinas and even in the Bay Area, and they have actually fell in love with Carmel and wanted to move here. So I think it is a way to, show how great of a community we have and how charming of a town that we have. And the kids really don't have many events to go to, and this is really one of
Was
the
a younger member of the
highlights
Turner family intending to speak?
Yep.
Okay.
We were wondering what the youngest member of the Turner family has to say.
Yeah. Just say what you think. Yeah. Just say what you think.
We value your opinion.
Go ahead. What do you think, Campbell?
Campbell, you weren't shy. You weren't shy the other day when you were the mayor.
She's being shy right now. Campbell, thumbs down on the pumpkin roll. Thumbs up?
All right, okay.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, next speaker. do come forward. Thank you. If you'd state your name for the record, I'd appreciate it.
Okay. My name's Chloe, and I'm from Carmel Middle School, and I'm going to be here to supporting the pumpkin roll. So me and my sister love the pumpkin roll, and we always bring our friends to go to. It's our only event, and we were really happy to go to it. And
yeah. So this is Chloe's second time ever here in the city council. Her last time was when she went on a field trip, which I don't think she's been on since COVID. It was back in 3rd grade. And so, I highlight that because these kids have lost so much. You cannot imagine what these children have lost. And they think that this is normal. My one daughter, she won't come out. She wouldn't come tonight because she's totally antisocial now after 2 years of being in her room, doing school at home and stuff. So these events are really, really important to our families, our local families. We don't have much here. And then the events, they didn't come back, they changed. The holiday event totally changed. The Halloween parade, they did it during trick-or-treating this year. Took it off the 10 o'clock. We've brought our Girl Scout troop to that every year. And so the pumpkin roll should absolutely be supported by the city. One of the first events that we ever came to here in Carmel after we moved here, 2019, was the pumpkin roll. We don't have a lot of events. My husband's in the military where a whole family can get together and come out. I have smiling pictures of my husband, my children, myself at the pumpkin roll. The pumpkins don't get smashed the first time that they go down. They get reused over and over again. Dave doesn't have a private jet, so we're saving on carbon emission there if we're talking about sustainability issues, right? And we know that they can be composted, they can be fed to the cows in Big Sur, other places that we've talked about, and this is what makes this town awesome. Okay, so these things make us unique.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate your testimony. Well said, both of you. Is anybody else wishing to speak tonight that's in the room here? Okay, I'll open it up to the Zoom world. I see Richard Kreitman. You have your hand up. What's up?
Yes, Mayor, thank you. When Mayor Dallas came up with this a few years ago, I was skeptical, sort of grumpy, and why close down Ocean Avenue, busy day, and it's fun. It's been an important community event for families with children. It is silly, but we need more of that. And listening to some of the last speakers, I had no idea. Didn't affect me because I don't have young children anymore, but how important these kind of events and gatherings are to the kids. So please, the questions about water use and all, that's de minimis, but actually, as was just mentioned, this is an excellent opportunity to use the rolled pumpkins as part of our local well-developed youth education and ecology and the environment as at Carmel Middle School. So yeah, let's get those pumpkins used for mulch, fertilizer, animals, whatever. It's a learning opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Is there anybody else wishing to speak tonight? I'm not seeing anybody.
Parker Logan.
Parker, go ahead. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Let's not forget one of the reasons that we established this event in the first place. It was because of kids like me who had unsanctioned pumpkin rolls all the way down Ocean Avenue to the beach parking lot, which was, a lot of fun, but I think it's a lot of fun to have it organized and people can get excited about it and paint their pumpkins. And it's a wonderful, wonderful event that should never go away because it's been a long tradition well before it was established as an official event. It's better to keep it official. It's a fun event for the kids, and I say move on with it. Let's keep it. Thank you.
Thank you, Parker. Is there anybody else wishing to speak tonight? Last call. All right, close the public comment period, bring it back to council for direction. Council members?
Yeah, my concern, because I think it probably is a fun event, definitely rolling pumpkins down the street is fun, but it does take a lot of staff time. It takes 3 community activities staff, 2 to 3 library staff or other staff, and volunteers like the community activities members, and 6 public works staff. So this is not an easy event. It's an easy idea, it's a fun idea, but it is labor intensive. And I rather like the idea of some sort of volunteer effort to assist with that so that it isn't quite so staff heavy. So I don't know whether there's a way to do that this year, but I know one of the suggestions was that a group take this over, and I don't know how feasible that is, but this is a heavy load for the staff, and it is very close. You know, one year it said the River Dads volunteered to corral the pumpkin rollers, so it does require some organization on the part of the staff. So I feel for the staff's concern about the event.
Well, I can share those concerns. I do think, though, unplugging the event without having an opportunity to do what you suggested, which would be to find more volunteers, be a little premature on that action. I'd support going ahead with the event now with an outreach effort to the community to say we could use some help on this event. I suspect Mr. Turner lives right next door. It wouldn't be real difficult for him to step out there, hand goes up in the crowd there. Bet you could corral a couple other strong young men like yourself to be part of that effort. That would be great. I'm happy to make a motion to go ahead and have the event with the understanding that the waste from the event, should there be any pumpkins that are destroyed, will go out to Moonglow Dairy and Mott's Landing for consumption by the cows. For that'll address at least the waste aspect of it. I did like the idea, though, if somebody wanted to brand the pumpkin with their own name on it and then go ahead and pick it up at the end of the roll. That's a possibility, but I don't know if that's too much detail for this effort, frankly. Carrie?
So you're suggesting your motion is to direct staff to hold the pumpkin roll,
Yep,
option 3?
Exactly.
I'll second that with some comments.
Certainly, go right ahead.
So in the past, we've had actually somebody donate the pumpkins. And I think the environmental issue was addressed by Mayor Potter. We composted them before. So I know a lot of farmers really enjoy that type of compost. You know, it really showcases the uniqueness of Carmel, and and the traditions of Carmel. And I think there's some of that we don't want to lose. The aspects of the family are terrific. And frankly, we have these public events, they're open to the public, whether most locals come, but if the visitors happen upon this event, they see the uniqueness of Carmel. They see families enjoying our village. I think that's a good thing. I really think that's a good thing. I think that, I know it's hard on the staff, but, we need to do events like this to engage the public and the community. And what I would like is when we've had it in the past, Ashley, what I really thought was nice is you also had activities in the park. And so, people did the roll, but then the kids I think they were having their faces painted, or they were having pumpkins painted. So it was nice to have that extension. It's not just the roll, but it is part of the families continuing to enjoy the event in the park as well. So I'd like to add that amendment to the motion to make sure that the staff can include some activities in the park.
I'd accept that as a suggested modification. I'd also state very clearly and very strongly that I don't think you can have too many events for kids. I don't think the quantifier should be we've got too many events for kids, we've got enough. I don't think you can have too many events for kids. So For that reason, I'm very supportive of the motion. Jeff, did you want to comment?
No, I'd just like to thank you, Dave, for the work that you did with getting the pumpkins recycled, maybe that's a better word, and composted. And I generally agree with Carrie's comment, so I'll be supporting the motion.
Yeah, we'll call the question then. Nova, could we get a roll call, please?
Yes. Councilmember Barron?
Yes.
Councilmember Ferlito?
Yes.
Councilmember Tice?
Yes.
Mayor Potter?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you, much appreciated. All right, we will then move on to item number 5. What? What's that? Sure, okay, we'll take a bio break. Take a 5-minute bio break, or 10, what, 10? We'll come back at Mills Act Historic Property Contract with the Carmel Beach Hotel and Spa, formerly known as the Colonial Terrace Inn. That is the action that's before us. Who is here? Steph, where is, who's doing the staff presentation? What happened to,
Marnie.
Marnie?
Sure.
Marnie, there you are. Marnie, you're on Zoom. I'm sorry. I was looking for you live and in person. All right, Marnie, the floor is yours.
Great. Well, thank you very much and good evening.
That's the wrong one. We're doing the stand, excuse me, the Colonial Terrace. We took it out of order.
Oh,
Because Bobby and I
okay.
have to recuse ourselves on the next one. That way I can leave the meeting.
Okay. Sorry.
I have to- Tab 4.
Okay. How's that?
Perfect. That's the right project.
Okay. So this is the first of two Mills Act contract applications that the council will be reviewing this evening. This is for the Carmel Beach Hotel and Spa, formerly known as the Colonial Terrace Inn. So this hotel is located at the northeast corner of San Antonio and 13th Avenue. It has historically been known as the Colonial Terrace Inn. It was constructed between 1930 and 1949 and is listed on the local historic inventory. So as you know, the Mills Act Historical Property Contract is an economic incentive program for historic resources. It provides a reduction in property taxes to the owner to offset the cost of rehabilitating and maintaining the historic resource. In order to qualify for a Mills Act contract, a property must be listed on the Carmel inventory of historic resources. It must also be on the local Carmel register. So this property was added to the inventory in May of 2005, and it was added to the register in September of 2003. So the city's Historic Resources Board is responsible for considering requests for Mills Act contracts and making a recommendation to the City Council. On April 18th of this year, the Historic Resources Board adopted a resolution recommending that the City Council enter into the Mills Act contract. The City Council is required to consider the recommendation from the Historic Resources Board at a public hearing and then decide whether or not to approve or enter into the contract. So there are 5 findings that both the board and the council need to make when considering the contract. The first is that the buildings are listed on the inventory as well as the register, and this particular property is on both. Also, that the proposed rehabilitation plan is appropriate in scope. Again, the Historic Resources Board reviewed the maintenance plan on April 18th. They found it appropriate with no modifications. So the scope of the rehabilitation and maintenance plan includes foundation work for some of the buildings, replacing the piping throughout the HVAC systems, electrical wiring, replacing interior fireplaces, putting in a new sprinkler system, as well as new windows and doors and accessibility upgrades. Finding number 3 is that the alterations are limited to interior work and exterior rehabilitation, and all work is completed with within the Secretary's standards. So the project is currently undergoing renovation. It was reviewed by both the Historic Resources Board as well as the Planning Commission, and the scope of the work was approved. The building permit was issued in February of this year, and work is well underway. Finding number 4 is that the contract will aid in offsetting the costs of rehabilitating the resource based on the scope of work outlined in the rehabilitation plan the owner's investing $3.5 million over 10 years. And lastly, the fifth finding is that the contract will represent an equitable balance of public and private interests and will not result in an adverse financial impact on the city. So the Monterey County Assessor is responsible for determining the Mills Act value of property, and this is based on information provided in the Revenue and Taxation Code. It's quite complex. Typically, the assessor will not provide us with preliminary estimates prior to approval of a contract, but we did reach out to them and they agreed to prepare an estimate if recent income information could be provided. Staff was unable to obtain this information, so we were not able to get an estimate from the Monterey County Assessor. However, the California Office of Historic Preservation does estimate that property owners receive approximately 40 to 60% reduction in their assessed value when they are under a Mills Act contract. And this becomes the Mills Act assessed value of the property. So for the purposes of this example, we're going to assume 50% because it's right in the middle between 40 and 60. So the property had a sale value in 2019 of $12,453,500. In 2022, the property was reassessed, and the current value is $12,719,000, or $12,719,000. So of this assessed value, the owner would pay 1% in property tax, which is a little over $127,000. Of that amount, the city gets 6%, which would equal $7,600. And then also of that amount, the schools receive 61%, so that would be approximately $77,500. So under the Mills Act assessed value, again, we're estimating a 50% reduction. The owner would be paying $6,359,000, or the property would be valued at $6,359,000. And then of that, 1% of the property tax would be $63,000. So you can see, based on the comparison from the left and the right, what the full assessed value would be, and then the 50% reduction under a Mills Act assessed value. Now, this could be a little bit higher, it could be a little bit lower, but it's the best estimate that we could provide at this time. So the tax revenue to the city under this scenario would be reduced by $3,800, and the tax revenue to the schools would be reduced by $38,000. Staff's recommendation is that the City Council accept the recommendation of the Historic Resources Board and approve the Mills Act contract, and then authorize the city administrator to execute the contract. And that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Marnie. Are there any questions by the council of Marnie at this time? I don't see any. I'll open it up to the public. Is there anybody in the public wishing to comment? Oh, excuse me. Maybe we should have a presentation by the applicant. What do you think? David, how long do you need for your presentation?
4 minutes, maybe.
Okay.
And then I'm going to ask our architect, Chris Barlow, to come up. Hi, everyone. David Fink. I'm the business owner of L'Auberge Carmel in Kenton at the Luca, and also Carmel Beach Hotel and Spa. And I'll get to the chart that I just passed out because I wanted to address Councilmember Barron's comments from the last meeting, and I can walk you through this. But I have a history of historic preservation. I grew up in a 1848 house in Virginia that we restored as our family, that got put on the National Register of Historic Places. And then, of course, one of the most famous buildings in Carmel is right next door to us, that Albert Farr designed for Alan Knight, and it was started in 1927 and opened in 1929 as the Sundial Court and Bungalows, and we bought it in 2002 and spent 2 years restoring that in 03 and 04. And we got the blueprints, the original blueprints from the city, so we could match the historic detail as much as we could for the facade. And we got an award from the Historic Resources Board for that renovation. Now we have a huge renovation that you saw today going on, and most of this Mills Act over the 10 years is front-loaded because we're doing a lot of that work this year and a little bit of next. And it's a tremendous amount of effort with time and money. And I'm crazy enough that I'm also restoring the 1896 building in France right now that's going to become a hotel next year. So I guess I just have this in my blood. But Jeff, I wanted to just address some of your questions, and Marnie did a great job breaking this down. But I spent a couple of hours researching this public information for Carmel Unified School District's taxes, because I know you brought that up at the last hearing, so I wanted to address that. So here are the secured rolled taxes that they get from property taxes every year in the left column by year, and in the middle column, unsecured property taxes that they get every year. At the bottom, the totals. To the far right, you can see the totals by year. We have a very, very wealthy school district, one of the wealthiest in the state, and their budget is now $80 million this year, and you can see it's going up every year. And the property tax jump from 21 to from 21-22 to 22-23 is tremendous. It's up just about $3 million. So I spent some time on the phone yesterday with Diana Gonzalez. She's the director of physical services. That's basically the controller for the school district. She said, David, this is going to have basically no effect on our budget whatsoever. And I just wanted to, make sure. And I said, I don't know what the amount is, somewhere between 30 and 45,000. She said it's not going to move the needle. So with that, I just wanted to bring up Chris Barlow. Chris is a expert in Mills Act restorations, and just wanted him to just say a word about the intention of the Mills Act.
Thank you, David, and thank you, members of the City Council and staff. Really pleasure to be out here. Yeah, I love doing Mills Act restorations, and want to take a step back since there haven't been a whole lot of Mills Act going through the city of Carmel in the last decade. Just kind of take a step back and say what we're trying to achieve with this. And I find that in my work, when I get to a beautiful historic building, so it's such a critical item to have the right building with the right owner. And I think in this case, and the last item on the agenda here, we found that synthesis. And to me, the Mills Act is one of the most powerful tools for historic preservation. It aligns the city's goals for preservation with a like-minded owner by basically recognizing the fact that old buildings really cost a lot of money to keep up. And in particular, because it is a contract, and part of that contract is that the owner of a historic property is sharing that history, that culture with the community. And that is why the state of California has empowered local jurisdictions and local, assessor's offices to give this recognition of that. In particular, I think that I've done quite a few private residences with Mills Acts, but the hotels are really one of the great examples because they are more open to the public than a private residence. So you really do have the opportunity to share to a larger community than just a private residence. So I really think both these are ideal candidates for Mills Act on that sense as well. And then finally, I think that with these applications, and I'll start with the current one, coming into the challenges that you'd have. I haven't experienced a single historic building that's been anywhere near accessible to start with. So with this element of more members of the public coming through these properties, there really is a challenge. And usually things like integrating fire sprinklers and accessibility, the cheapest way is never the way you end up going because it's not appropriate for the building. So there really is a lot of extra thinking and extra funding that goes into finding the right solution, the appropriate solution for these projects. And I think in both of them we've achieved that. So I'd be available for any questions, but certainly appreciate you considering these applications.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate your testimony. All right, I'm going to open up the public. Is there anybody in the public wishing to speak to this item tonight? In the house or in Zoom? Last call. All right, I'm going to close the public comment period, bring it back to council for consideration. Council members, your thoughts? Bobby?
This question is for David. David, do you know what the RevPAR was for the Colonial Terrace before purchase?
I want to say right around 280 per key.
Do you know what you're anticipating?
I think our opening RevPAR will be about 420.
So,
I mean, not ADR, but, RevPAR.
Okay.
Yeah, which means our ADR will be south of 500. And
so if I do that, it's 140, right?
I'm sorry.
So the RevPAR be 140 would be the...
yeah, I think what you're getting at is we're going to triple TOT down there within...
and so what was the... Do you know what the TOT was then and what you anticipate it to be?
The city has that TOT record, but I believe their best year was about $2 million in rooms revenue, and we should be north of $4 million once we get stabilized. Okay. Yeah, so, and that's just within 24 months, growing from there. We're 6 times over TOT here from the old operation, so.
Could you put in your line of relevancy on the question, just so the council members understand where you're going with this?
So the increase in room rate and nightly stays is probably going to be about $200,000 in TOT tax to the city. Am I correct?
Yes.
That's
it. All righty, any other questions? Any other comments, any other actions?
Yes,
Karen.
I have a question, comment. So I got very interested in this Mills Act as well, because I always thought the Mills Act was supposed to be to help people who didn't have very much money keep up their properties. And this is not that case in this building. And I understand this is the first time we have done a commercial Mills Act. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
So I did a little looking, and I looked up the San Francisco Mills Act program, and they limit it to, it should not exceed $3 million on residential properties, and they also limit the commercial and industrial properties who have a fair market value to not to exceed $5 million. And then I looked up the County of Monterey, and they have the same limitation. They limit it to a $3 million property and a $5 million property. And we have properties here that are way, way over that, and I just wonder if maybe our Mills Act requirements need to be looked at again, because I don't like taking money away from the schools. I'm glad you clarified that it's not going to be a death blow to them. That's certainly good. But I just have a hard time thinking about a property that was purchased at $12 million and coming now and wanting tax reduction on it.
Chip, do you have an answer to that?
It's just a question that I have. When other entities have done limitations as to what qualifies, why we never did that, and
Yes, ma'am. So I think that it's a very relevant question. I think that the council recognized the potential for real property tax losses by limiting the number that we could approve on a regular basis. Mr. Swanson's office is in the process now of redoing the historic context statement. And I think the natural genesis out of that would be to look at our historic preservation ordinance to determine whether these are the kinds of alterations that you would, from the policy's perspective, like to make in the future. That said, my counsel to you is you have a current policy, and that's the standard by which you need to evaluate this application tonight, ma'am.
Thank you.
Carrie?
So on the tour today, we saw that there was a quite substantial renovation going on. And the challenge we have in Carmel is we love our old buildings, but they are very hard to keep up. I have one of them, so I do know a thing or two about that. So what the Mills Act is doing is encouraging people to renovate and keep our old buildings. One question I have for David, was there, obviously after you saw all the rot, did you consider tearing it down, or could you have done that?
We wouldn't be allowed to tear it down because it's a historic resource.
Okay.
Yeah, but as you saw today, there were 3 buildings that had extensive damage that probably would have been failing within the next 10 years on some part structurally.
Mm-hmm.
And if I may, Karen, Esperanza owns these properties, but I'm the lessee, and I pay for everything. So it's coming out of my pocket, and just our maintenance cost alone at L'Auberge is over $300,000 a year, and it's tremendously expensive to maintain. And we're even closer to the water now with this new building, and it's going to take constant maintenance, and these tax breaks and that's what it is. It's a tax break, is going to go right back into preserving this resource for hopefully forever. So that's why we're applying for this. Thank you.
So that's kind of the challenge is, especially for a commercial property, you want to give your guests the highest quality when they stay here. And obviously, there was a lot of work that needed to be done on this property. And so it takes somebody devoted to understand what that is. And I think that we have to, the whole point of the Mills Act is to encourage this type of renovation. And the TOT value, as Mr. Richards said, is going to, we're going to get more than what we're giving up in terms of property tax from that issue. So, it takes a lot of endeavor to do something like this. And so I appreciate it when people do want to put in the money and understand the historicity of the building. So I would support this project.
Thank you, Kara. Just if I could just pile on to that, what you said just a minute ago about the non-compliance nature of this project with the existing conditions. There's pages 5 through 56 of the staff report show over 200 violations of non-compliance with current standards. I think in my mind, what you just said about the fact that this building needs some serious upgrade, those illustrations are very, very compelling. Jeff?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, David, first for all the work that you're doing and keeping these buildings up to date and renovating them. Last time I had a concern about the cost of the community of the tax breaks, and unfortunately my concerns haven't been addressed. I don't know, at the beginning of every agenda item we have, and Chip and I have talked about this, a state mandated line that says fiscal impact. And it's there because of state law. And the purpose of this agenda item, the purpose of this item in the agenda reports is so that councils can evaluate the cost of the actions that they're going to take. And I raised this issue, 3 or 4 months ago when we had the first go round of this hearing. And unfortunately, unfortunately that line is still not filled in. So I don't know, I would ask staff, sort of what's going to happen when this Mills Act contract gets to the county. Like, is the county going to ask the same information? It's my understanding that the formula that is used to calculate the sort of the tax abatement requires these numbers. And so whether we have the number now or the county gets the number 2 months from now when this contract that sounds like it's going to be passed makes its way to the county, at some point, we're going to have this number. And what I don't understand is why we don't have this number now. Like this, it bothers me. It bothers me that, this is somehow being hidden from us, hidden from this council. And so that's my concern. I would be willing to, so I do appreciate the work, and I would be willing to support a contract if the sort of minimum taxable value was specified as part of the direction we give to the county, so for example, in this case, the $12,719,000 assessment. So if we establish that the contract wouldn't allow, say, the assessed value to be less than $8 million, for example, going towards where Karen said the other, other communities are, I would be willing perhaps to support something like that. But with the current open-ended nature of the cost to the city, at this point, I will not support the contract.
Yeah,
Excuse me, does staff have an answer to that question, or that statement? Brandon, will you want to say something? Chip, what do you?
Sorry, I thought there was maybe a question in there, but Councilmember Barron. Okay, so it doesn't sound like there's a question.
Well, the question was, will the data be required? And so I think the answer you got from the assessor is...
So I can answer that, so thank you. So we did reach out to the assessor's office. They will ask for the same information about the income. The applicant will not be required to provide that. The assessor's office asks for it and says this is how we need it to calculate it. If they refuse to give it to the county, then the county has to go through a very complicated and difficult analysis to pull a bunch of information and do all these calculations. This is what the assessor's office told us. It's not their preferred method. They try very, very hard and very diligently to get it from the property owner. It's their first and most preferred method of getting that information, but they cannot legally require them to give it to them.
Yeah, they work with the State Board of Equalization on past data sets to glean the same information they'd ask of Mr. Fink.
Okay, I have a question also. Fiscal impact. What is the fiscal impact to the planning department for the subsequent inspection time, staff time to do the inspection, staff time to do the paperwork? How often are those inspections? Do they occur? And what integrity is to them? Do they have to hire someone to do the inspection and then submit that to us? I don't think we have any data on that.
So anecdotally, so we have to check every year. So we're submitted a work plan. So that's how the Mills Act works. We get a work plan, and then we need to check every year to make sure that they're doing things on the work plan by following up and see if there's building permits that have been issued and things like that. As far as putting a financial value on the staff time, that's part of our normal daily work. So it's incorporated in the annual budget for staff time. It's part of our typical day-to-day job to do that sort of thing.
So they don't pay a fee at all for any of this inspection time?
No, it's all staff work.
It's part of the permit.
It's part of the permit, yeah.
They pay a permit fee.
A building permit fee.
Building, right.
So when Colonial Terrace is doing this work right now, you saw the building permit numbers on there, the actual permit number itself. That they paid a fee for that. So the building permit inspections are covered under that fee. And as far as administration of the Mills Act program, checking to make sure that they're doing things on their work plan, that's just part of our daily work.
So how can you come up with a figure that will last over a 10-year period or a 20-year period, however long this goes?
Well, I think
that's a lot of staff time.
Yeah, so that's why we don't look at it as a calculable number. Like the fiscal impacts to the city, we put those up there because those are real tax dollars. But monitoring the Mills Act program is part of what we fund every year for staff time. So staff time is put in to our annual budget as day-to-day operational work, and this just falls under that.
Okay.
Yeah, the revenue for that comes from the building permit process.
Exactly.
For each of the different items that Mr. Fink would be required by the contract to complete, he'd be required to get a building permit, and then our effort, ma'am, would be absorbed by that fee.
So is there one building permit fee
No.
for this whole project?
No, there's multiple building permits. So again, if he's re-roofing, that's a separate permit from upgrading the electrical system, or reciting, or doing, drainage is not a good example, but, other work that would require building permits, water heaters, window improvements, those kinds of things. So the gutters, those are all permittable services.
All right, are there any other questions? Thank you, Brandon. Any other questions?
Want to make a motion?
Sure.
Okay. I will make a motion that we accept the recommendation of the Historic Resource Board and approve the Mills Act Historical Property Contract MA 21-239 for the historic Colonial Terrace Inn, known as the Carmel Beach Hotel Spa at San Antonio 13.
I'll second that.
All right, is there any other discussion? I just say in my mind that, sometimes we have to give up a little to get a lot. And when we get these historic buildings, especially ones that are in public use, private ownership and in public use, I think there's a real value to that. As I walked through that building today and I saw the old main lodge area, I was very impressed by what the efforts are that are going on in there. I don't think there's a price that I could put in that I would know exactly how much I'm going to be spending on that building, but I bet that budget was shot the day they started the project. So that said, I'm willing to go ahead and support the motion. Marla, can we get a roll call, please?
Councilmember Barron?
No.
Councilmember Ferlito?
No.
Councilmember Tice?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Richards?
Yes.
Mayor Potter?
Aye.
Motion carries 3-2.
That noted, I will be recusing myself from the next item because of my close proximity to the auberge structure. I believe Bobby Richards will be doing the same thing.
I will be
You guys are
recusing
on your
myself
own.
for, due
Thank
to,
you all for convening. I appreciate that. I will be.
And we can
And
schedule,
excuse me, Carrie Tice is vice mayor for the moment.
Okay, thank you.
and we can schedule future agenda items when we get to that part of the meeting.
Yes, sure. Yeah, thanks. You can suggest them whether they get on the agenda or not, remain to be seen. Yeah. No.
Just leave it there. All right, see you tomorrow.
Okay, thanks. The meeting, Karen will lunch, right?
Yeah, see you here at noon.
Okay, good, okay. See you tomorrow.
Bye, Dave.
All right, good. Thank you.
There's a luggage here. Thanks for that. Appreciate making those old buildings nice.
All right, we are considering a recommendation from the Historic Resources Board that the City Council into a Mills Act Historic Property Contract MA 21-238, known as L'Auberge Carmel, for the historic Sundial Lodge, now known, located on Monteverde Street 2 Northeast to 7th. Marnie?
Well, thank you. So the second of the two Mills Act contracts. Okay, so L'Auberge is located on Monteverde Street between Ocean and 7th. It is known historically as the Sundial Lodge. It was designed by Albert Farr and constructed by M.J. Murphy. And this hotel is also listed on the local historic inventory. Again, we just talked about how the Mills Act is an economic incentive program. So at the March 1st, 2022 City Council meeting, the council actually considered this contract. Staff had presented it with a recommendation to enter into the contract via a resolution. With 2 council members recused, there needed to be 3 affirmative votes to pass the resolution. So the item was continued, and the city attorney looked into whether a Mills Act contract needed to be approved by resolution, and determined that it did not. So we are back before the council this evening with the contract without a resolution. So again, properties must be on both the local historic inventory as well as the register, and L'Auberge is listed on both. And again, the process, Historic Resources Board reviewed the maintenance plan in January of this year and adopted a resolution in support of the rehabilitation and maintenance plan with no changes. So the property does meet finding number 1. It is listed on the inventory as well as the register. And the maintenance plan was found to be appropriate by the board in January, and they are recommending that the city council enter into the contract. So some of the scope of work under this particular rehabilitation and maintenance plan will include foundation inspection and repair, also replacing the plumbing throughout the hotel, as well as the HVAC system, exterior painting and roof maintenance, some window repairs, and possibly some replacements due to extensive deterioration. Also some termite testing, drainage improvements, and repairs to the retaining wall. So again, finding number 3, alterations must be completed in accordance with the Secretary's standards. So going forward, the applicant would submit for a design study for all exterior work, and staff would review it to ensure that it meets the Secretary's standards. And then finding number 4, the contract will aid in offsetting the cost of rehabilitation. The applicant estimates investing $850,000 in rehabilitation over the next 10 years. And finally, finding number 5, that it will represent an equitable balance of public and private interest. So again, same as before, staff is estimating. We don't have the actual data for this property, but we are estimating 50% reduction in the assessed value under the Mills Act contract to kind of give you an idea of what that would amount to. So in 2020, the property was sold and it was valued at $13,900,000. In 2022, the property was reassessed at $14,324,000. And as you can see, the current property tax bill at 1% would be $143,000. And the city's share of that would be almost $8,600. And the share to the school, $87,000. So by comparison, under the Mills Act assessment, we're estimating a 50% reduction. So the assessed value would drop down to $7 million. The property tax would be reduced to $71,000. The city's share would be reduced to $4,200. And then the school share would be at $43,000. And again, it could be more or less. And with that, staff is recommending that the City Council accept the recommendation of the Historic Resources Board, approve the Mills Act contract, and authorize the City Administrator to execute the contract. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Marnie. Do either any council members have any questions about the presentation? All right, so David, would you like to, how many minutes would you like to present on this one?
I don't think I need a lot of time.
All right.
I think I'm fighting an uphill battle here. So I just want to ask Councilmember Barron and Frolito, if I ask for a continuance here and I get you, or I try to get you, and I'd like Chris to comment on this because he's really the expert in the room here. This guy knows more about the Mills Act than all of us combined. If we get, what I understand is there's no definitive way they're going to give us the number. Is that right, Chris?
Yeah, it's so I've served on the City of Monterey Historic Board for 5 years, and we'd run into the same issue over and over again: is what is the exact number? And in my experience, with clients, I mean, it's the same issue on both sides because David doesn't know how much he's going to save. We've got, it's usually somewhere between half to 2/3, and generally that's what it comes back from the assessor. But until that Mills Act gets recorded and deeded, that's when we all find out the number. I've got the same issue with my house, which is in the process of getting a Mills Act. So I'd say that, you know, to me, the way I look at it more is that you have, you know, with these types of projects, especially with hospitality, you've got a huge initial investment, and that's, you know, that's gone no matter what for most of these hotel owners with the historic property. But what really gets you is that same very high cost of the purchase year after year after year in property tax is really what starts dwindling down, you know, an owner's ability to finance restoration work, all the things that are needed, 10 years of building permits for all these different items that we've talked about. So I tend to think of it more that way in terms of, you know, what's the value of upkeep for a property that's, you know, frankly a resource for the whole community, not just one owner. And that's all I can say on that.
Yep. So I'm going to ask for continuance, and I will come back and do my absolute best with the assessor. But what we're hearing from the expert is we're not going to get the number. That's what we're hearing. We're not going to get the number until we have the contract. So if I could ask for a continuance on this item, Acting Mayor, that would be great.
Thank you for that request. Chip, do you have any response to that?
The continuance is up to you. I mean, we're not, this isn't pressing. I would recommend that you entertain that. But Mr. Swanson didn't, and I don't want to, Mr. Barlow, I've known for a long time. Yeah, yes, sir. So, Brandon, can you please answer the question about what the assessor told you? Let me say it first. No, go
It's
ahead.
okay. Councilmember Barron told me to sit down earlier too, so it's fine. It's equal opportunity. So I did reach out to the assessor's office, and while it is true they typically do not provide a preliminary number ahead of time, you know, we have a good relationship with the assessor's office, and they were willing to do that preliminary calculation for us. They said they needed some income information from the property. So if what Mr. Fink is suggesting is that he's willing to share some additional information with the assessor's office, I do believe we will get a preliminary number from the assessor's office. It certainly won't be official, it won't be final, but I'm guessing it'll be a heck of a lot closer than we can get with our 50% estimate that we did on the screen for you.
So David, the question becomes, are you going to work with the assessor's office to give them what they need?
I'm going to absolutely do my best. I mean, no property owner or business owner wants to get reassessed. And, you know, what I think could actually happen is the assessment could go down because of, you know, they're going to ask for 3 years of business. And, you know, between 2020 and 2021, as you know, Carrie, we had some pretty tough times here. 2022 happens to be a good year, but so our assessment could potentially drop, which, you know, would be good on our tax base, but not good for, you know, everybody else. But yes, I will do my best to work with Brandon and the assessor's office to get you some numbers, which we're hearing from the experts are not going to be exact.
I have a question for Brian. You know, before, when I was speaking to the first hearing, you know, I raised the issue, and I'm sorry we didn't have this discussion beforehand, and I'm putting you on the spot, of capping the tax abatement through the process that we're having here on the dais. Is that something we could legally do, or, you know, could we approve the contract with the maximum tax abatement being, you know, $10, and $10 is not the number I would use, but, or is that not really our?
I don't believe that would be an option. I think.
I'm sorry?
I believe this is on.
It's on.
Yeah. So I don't believe that would be an option. I think that if what you need is a more accurate number, then I believe that the appropriate course of action would be to give the applicant the opportunity to provide that information to you, rather than to try to impose a conditional approval subject to it being some other number.
I think You know, the problem, and I'm sort of inclined to sort of grant the continuance, I'm just speaking for me. I think the problem I'm having now is that we sort of granted the first application without going through this process, and now we're here and the result isn't what the applicant wants. And so now we're doing this other process for the second application. And it bothers me tremendously that the process is not the same for both of these things, that we, we sort of, I'm going to get myself in trouble, so I'm going to sort of stop talking here. I honestly do not, this is difficult for me. I do not, and that really does bother me. So, I don't know. I'd like to hear what.
Do we need a motion for a continuance?
Yes, it's been requested, so the only way that that's going to happen is if somebody makes a motion and you get at least 2 votes in favor of the motion.
I don't know if I'm ready yet. I'd like to hear what Karen has to say.
Do you want to weigh on this?
Well, it was disappointing to me that the applicant didn't provide the information that was requested when it was requested. I think that would have made a big difference. And now you are saying that you will do your best to do it, but I don't know why you didn't do it to begin with. Personally, I really like the idea of what other jurisdictions have a limit of $5 million and $3 million. Maybe those numbers are something we should look at in the future. But what we have today is this situation, and I would support a continuance to get some real number, or close to what we think could be some real numbers. And part of that is for an educational purpose, because this is going to come up again. And I would like to see it be different in the future if someone comes with an application to provide those numbers to us so that we don't have to go through this. So I would support a continuance.
Is that a motion?
Yes.
I'll second the motion. Any other comments?
So I'll support the motion. I do hope that we get the cooperation with this application that we did not get. We've asked for this information before. We asked for it both times, for both of these applications. I think staff has been asking for a number of months, and we haven't gotten the information. So I do hope that we'll get the cooperation this time that will allow this to move forward.
All right, I think we've had discussion. Nova, could you please do a roll call vote?
Yes. Councilmember Barron?
Yes.
Councilmember Ferlito?
Yes.
Councilmember Tice?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. All right. I'm still on. Okay, I think that was the last agenda item. So did we want...
Future agenda? No.
Do we have any other announcements? But we did want to close in the memory of Mr. Friedman and Mr. Sharman. So,
David Sharman.
Did the public get to speak on the last item?
Yes, they did.
I didn't.
No, Carrie, you didn't ask.
The public.
Mr. Logan,
Maybe they
yeah,
did.
I think we did. You asked if the public could speak on the last item,
Oh, I'm sorry.
the request for a continuance.
Oh, well, it's all recorded so we can look back, but I've been listening intently, and it was just brought straight to council to talk about it. They didn't ask about the public.
You're correct, but the council was considering a continuance, and so it's going to come back to the public again. Did you want to make your comments public now?
If I could, yeah.
Sure, go ahead.
Quick,
Go ahead.
because Council Member Ferlito mentioned, limitations in other cities, and a close one, San Francisco, which certainly has similar property values as ours. But on their whole Mills Act, regulations, there are exemptions for the tax assessment values in San Francisco. And if the property exceeds the tax assessment value, there's two considerations. One, the site, building, or object or structure is particularly significant resource and represents an exceptional example of an architectural style, the work of a master, or is associated with the lives of significant persons or events important to local or natural history, which L'Auberge does. And two, granting the exemption will assist in the preservation of the site, building, or object or structure that would otherwise be in danger of demolition or substantial alteration or disrepair. So certainly, limitations are a good thing, but when you're comparing San Francisco, and those seem like small values, because there's certainly much more significant and expensive properties in San Francisco, just like there are in Carmel-by-the-Sea. So it's another thing to consider when thinking, oh, there should be limitations. Well, these are special properties, so maybe there should be exceptions. That's why there are exceptions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I apologize for not bringing it out to public. Is anybody else in the public would like to make a comment? We're happy to entertain that. I see none, so we'll bring it back. So this item will be continued, and it will be a public hearing again. So thank you. We will now do the formal closing of this meeting for those two dear men, Mr. Friedman and Mr. Sharman. So thank you very much. I have trouble with this name, Sharman.